Hi. So in this this video, what I'm going to talk about is the different options out there that are available to you for getting your own website. There's so many different ways to do it these days that there isn't just one choice and there isn't just one best choice. Really, what it comes down to is the best choice for you and also what level of involvement you want in the building side, the actual building side of the website itself. So I created this little checklist here using simple Google Sheet, and let me hide this, move it out of the way. Going over some of the different options that are available out there, and some will be right for you, some won't, but the more you know, the better decision you can make. A lot of people think that, let's just go free. And there's lots of free options out there. There's some good plus side and some downside to getting something free. So, for example, if you went with something like Wix, sure, you can get it for free. But Wix is going to pull a little banner across the top advertising their product, and you don't get to use your own domain. You can call it, like, say, if it's yourwebsite.com, it would say wix.yourwebsite.com, or maybe yourwebsite.com, or your website. I don't remember what the order is. It doesn't matter. But either case, Wix is going to be in the URL of your website, which may not matter, depending on what level you're at. Maybe you're just trying to work it out and figure things out. And that's a great start. I did it once, and it was fine until it wasn't. And I wanted to get that Wix out of there. And then I moved on and discovered different things, and I grew. And I personally now I use WordPress for everything. So anyway, this spreadsheet, if we walk through it, these tabs across the bottom, we'll move this out of the way. We'll walk through the different things that I just briefly touched on. So for example, so here I just kind of give you a brief overview of what's going on. How do I get rid of that? Okay. The different, why does that keep popping up? Anyway, I think it's because I'm hovering over something here. So it's not going away. Doesn't matter. All right. So it's a little pesky thing. Will not leave. Anyway, so here's just a brief intro for WordPress. And there's two different versions of WordPress, actually. You can actually go with a free version of WordPress. Operates very much like Wix does. WordPress.com and WordPress.org. WordPress.com is a hosted, cloud-hosted service so your website will live on WordPress servers, and you will essentially have what's called a subdomain of WordPress itself. So again, you'll have WordPress in the title if you choose to go with the free domain. So it'll be WordPress.com and then / whatever your domain that you choose to use. It's been a while since I tried that, so I couldn't even tell you for sure if they're going to have any advertising on the website. I don't think so, but that's something to think about. And then down here, let's get rid of that. So now I go in a little more detail about the options out there. These are free options right here. So you can go with Wix. Squarespace, so Wix is a free option. Squarespace, I don't believe, has a free option at all. Again, it's essentially doing the same thing. Drag and drop is what they call it. So you find the icon of the element that you want on your website. So if it's a headline or if it's an image, there'll be a little palette. You drag it onto the canvas, and you just type in what you want to do. They all more or less work the same way. The code behind it is different. Again, I can't confirm this, but what I have been told by somebody who I trust and respect told me that Wix relies quite heavily on JavaScript. So that makes it a little bit more difficult for services like Google to crawl the site. And what I mean by crawl the site is Google sends out little bots to crawl your site and index the content of the site. And that's how it determines what's going to show up on a search result. So if your website is about cell phones and you write lots of content about cell phones, you have pictures about cell phones, and in the description of the pictures, you write cell phones. That's a keyword. Cell phones would be your keyword. So when somebody types in about, like, what are the best cell phones on the market, depending on the rank of your website, this doesn't happen overnight. This is called SEO. That's a whole other thing. it'll go into it may show up on, you may show up on the search results for that keyword. With Wix, it becomes a little bit more difficult because of that JavaScript reliant software. I think they're trying to change that and trying to get, less reliant on that and rank better with the search engines. So anyway, something to think about. Squarespace is another one like Wix, and more or less the same thing. Drag and drop, build your website. Like I said, no free option on the Squarespace, but I think the plans start at like $8 a month or whatever it is. And then Shopify. Oh, here, no, I'm sorry. I even wrote it in here. Pricing starts. I should probably read my own content. Pricing starts at $12 a month for Squarespace. But if you go up one tier to the business plan for $18 a month, you get a free year of G Suite. G Suite is basically Gmail without the Gmail in your email address. So instead of it saying your name at gmail.com, it would just say your name at whatever domain you have purchased. So if it's mywebsite.com, it'll say your name at yourwebsite.com. Normally that's $6 a month, but if you sign up at the higher tier of Squarespace, you get that for free for 1 year. So you save about 50% off your G Suite. G Suite is great. You get all the different apps that come with G Suite, like Google Drive, Sheets, Google Docs, and you get quite a bit more storage, so you can even store your files in the cloud. So that might be an enticing offer right there. But again, with just like Wix, you're tied to their hosting. So your website lives on their servers. You can't take your website away. So for example, if for whatever reason, once you get a little more experience and you say, you know what, I don't want to host my website here anymore, you're out of luck with a service like Squarespace. But again, it might be something that never comes up, may never be a problem for you at all, and you'll be perfectly happy. There's some pretty good notable websites on Squarespace. I believe if you're familiar with Joe Rogan, his website is hosted and built with Squarespace. Now let's move on to Shopify. Shopify starts at $29 a month, and it can go as high as $300 a month. Now, Shopify is a very specific type of website builder. It's built for shopping carts, e-commerce. So if you're selling a product online and you want a website builder that, it's a one-stop shop, Shopify is the way to go. No free plans there. So that's something to consider. So once you decide where you want to build your website or how you want to build your website, whether it be Wix, Squarespace, or Shopify, or WordPress. Now, WordPress, again, has the two options, WordPress.com, hosted on their server, WordPress.org. WordPress.org is just the software. So it's free. So you download the software onto whatever server you choose, and there you get a little more freedom. So if you have a little more experience and you want to be able to choose your server, choose where you host your website, where your website lives, then WordPress.org is the way to go. So you would download that software onto the server, and then you start building your website from there. You would need a domain. You would have to purchase a domain for that, and that's the next tab on the line here. Domain name. So domain name is basically the address for your website. It's the name of your company. It could be an acronym. It could be anything you want. And there are many different options for where to buy your domain and keep it hosted in that service. The one I use all the time and the one I recommend to all of anybody I talk to who asks, I use Namecheap. Prices are competitive across the board. There, one service is not going to sell it for any cheaper or more than any others, with some exceptions, and that's with premium domains. And I'll get into that in a second here. So Namecheap, they got a great interface, so using what they call the dashboard. So how you manage your domain, how you set up the DNS settings for once you do have a host somewhere and you're building your website, getting the domain to point, real dead simple, real easy to use. And they also have great support. I've had to use their support on a few occasions, maybe 2 or 3 times. It was text, just typing on my keyboard, and somebody came on right away and they were able to help me. It was an email issue that I had. Um, you could buy email hosting through them as well if you want. Email hosting is a whole other topic, but you could buy your email hosting from there. But they also have a cool feature, which when I was trying to make up my mind how I wanted to host my email, I still wanted to get email through that domain. They have what's called a catch-all. So I set up a catch-all. So now when somebody, say my domain name was, red.com. Catch-all means that no matter what you put before the @ symbol, it was going to come to my email. And I had it redirecting to my Gmail account, my free Gmail account. So you could type in blue@red.com. I got the email. You could say potatoes@red.com. It came to my email. Catch all. Really cool feature to have. And I believe they all offer some type of service like that. But it's a cool feature to have. So as you're making your decisions on how to move forward with email, you can still start utilizing your email on some level. Domain.com, another one like that. Buydomains.com is, now this is where the prices change. This is where you're going to start paying a lot of money for your domains. These are what are known as premium domains. So in most cases, somebody already owns the domain. They're just not using it, but they're offering it for sale. Now, you could expect to pay thousands, sometimes tens of, well, yeah, I can safely say tens of thousands of dollars for some domain names that are for sale on here. They're much shorter, and they might have names on there. So, for example, the example I just gave with red.com, that very well could be a premium domain, and you could expect to spend a couple of thousands of dollars for a domain like that. So if that's something critical to your business, critical to your branding, and you have the budget for it, that's the place to go. Buydomains.com. But most domains are going to cost you about $9, $8, like namecheap.com. Most domains that are not premium domains, $8.88 plus an ICANN fee, which is the governing body of whatever. I don't really know too much about that stuff, but there's a little fee on there, so it comes out to about $9.20 or something like that for a domain. So you can start your collection quickly and not too expensive, and without much cost. Let's see what's next on here. www or no www, doesn't matter. You could choose to use it or choose not to use it. Either way, it doesn't matter. Whichever one you choose, if you choose to go without the www, you just got to set up a redirect so that if somebody does type in www.yourdomain.com, it gets redirected to your website. That's a dead simple thing to do as well. .com, .co, .net, .org, .io, whatever. I mean, there's so many suffixes, I guess that's what you call it, at this point that, .com is the most common, most famous, most recognizable one, but more and more you're seeing other things coming out there. .edu, if you're running an education website, not a bad idea to use something like that. And other reasons that I'm not going to go into much into that because I haven't really, because I have and always probably will use .com, unless, of course, like I said, .edu. If I'm building a website for a school, for example, it would make sense to go with .edu for education. Let's move on. Hosting. This is a real critical decision, and one that you should, if you're not going with a service like Wix or Squarespace or WordPress.com, this is going to be one of the most critical decisions you make. And there are so many options out there that you really need to do your homework on this one and make sure that you make the right decision that's best for your business and your website. You could get hosting. So, for example, on SiteGround, right here, this first column, SiteGround, you could get shared hosting, which means your website would live on a server with potentially thousands of other websites, which is going to affect the performance of that server. And the way that works is that, say if you have a very small website, 3 or 4 pages, you're not doing any e-commerce, you're writing a blog, maybe you get a couple hundred visitors to your website a month, no real big spikes in traffic. But if you're sharing a server with somebody that does have thousands of visitors a month and they get sudden spikes in traffic, or maybe they're running an e-commerce and they're selling products, and maybe they got lots of graphics and just a heavy website, that's going to affect the performance of the server. And since your website is living on that server too, it's going to affect the performance of your website. That's not to say it's the wrong decision. Again, that's something you need to decide for yourself. Is that the right decision for your website? Is that meeting your needs? So when I first started building websites for myself, I used, was I on SiteGround? No, I wasn't on SiteGround. I was on InMotion Hosting. And I was using a shared server, optimized my website as best I could. And it was fine. It wasn't a huge website. It was basically an informational website. It worked fine, no problem. And their first year introductory offer, you could get it for as little as, like, I think $4 a month. You got to pay for the full year. The only catch with that is that at the end of the year, if you want to renew with them, that $4 a month introductory price is going to jump up to like $18 a month. You have to check their website for their latest pricing. So, but I believe that's in the range of what it goes into. So great to sign up, and that's what I did, and I used it for a year. And within that year, my business grew. I was working with more clients. I was had a lot more experience, and InMotion Hosting was no longer the best choice for me. I mean, now that's not to say that they don't have packages, other offers, higher level offers that would have been right for me. I just found a different option that worked better for me, and so I went to a service called Cloudways. Cloudways is a little harder for beginners to use, only because they don't have it's more like you got to really know a little bit more about servers and knowing how to configure the server, things like that. Now, there's also something that InMotion and SiteGround, Bluehost, all these other different services offer. So you can move up in tiers. You can go to what's called VPS, Virtual Private Server, where, yeah, you're on a server with other websites, but whatever software they use, and I don't know the technical aspects of this, but what they do is they partition out the server so that you kind of get your own space or your own private room on this bigger server that's hosting other sites. So that if you were to, there's a website out there, I forget what it's called now. I did this about a year ago, where you can actually determine how many other websites are on the server with you. So if you were on just plain shared serving and you ran this, I did this for a friend of mine. And I checked out his website, and he was on a server with over 1,000 other websites. With VPS, if you ran that same service, same software, you would only see your website. It wouldn't detect any other websites on there, so you're not affected by any other websites as far as performance, because you have all of your dedicated resources on this server that are only for your website. That's not to say that if another website had some kind of critical error that fried the entire server, then you would be affected. But I've been using VPS servers now for a couple of years. Never had that happen. All right, so SiteGround, then you have Bluehost. Get Flywheel. Get Flywheel is a dedicated WordPress hosting service. They're a little bit more expensive. People love them. Other people don't. Again, it's personal preference. You got to look into the different pros and cons of using something like that. Then you have A2 Hosting. I've never used them, but they get really, really good reviews, and people who I have spoken with who have used them. And again, these are at the higher end of things. So when you're first getting started, I wouldn't use Flywheel or A2 Hosting. I would stick with something like SiteGround, Bluehost, InMotion Hosting. I would stick with services like that. Get your feet wet, learn how a server works, how it affects the performance of your website. And then you can make your decision. That's what I did, and I'm happy I did it that way. And then you might find that it's all you need for, moving forward for whatever amount of time. WP Engine is another one. They're pretty expensive for one site. One is $25 a month, up to 25,000 visits a month, 10 gigs of storage. Bandwidth is pretty good. Then you can move up from there. So, but to get started, $25 a month might not be the right choice for you. So, like I said, SiteGround or InMotion Hosting. What's the difference between shared, managed, and VPS. So again, so shared, like I said, thousands of websites, one server. VPS, you got your own little cornered off room on a larger server. And then managed, you could get your own server that is 100% all yours, dedicated to you and your website. This is something you would only do for really big, high traffic websites, e-commerce websites where you're getting thousands of visitors a day, where you need that dedicated support. You get more, on these types of services, you get a direct line to tech support, and they'll help you with, solve any problem that could come up. But you're talking, hundreds of dollars a month for a service like that. And if you got an e-commerce store that's raking in cash, that might be the right choice. That would be the right choice. And that even might be, that would be the way you need to go. Yeah, and GoDaddy. I'm not going to trash GoDaddy. I would stay away from them though. Email. Okay, touched on email just a little bit. Here's the G Suite that I talked about. Email is kind of hard to explain, and it's something that I don't really deal with a whole lot. I mean, I set up my own email, and that's it. For clients that want to set up email, I give them some advice and some guidance, and I try to help them with it. But email is something that needs to be hosted on its own server. So it's like your website is hosted on a server, your email is also hosted on a server. And why is this important? This is important because of all the different spam protections that are out there now. There is a high threshold to get over in order for your emails to be, considered not spam, valid, and delivered. So if you're using a service like G Suite, which is the Google email service that starts at $6 a month for one email, and I think you get a couple of aliases on there. I think maybe up to, I don't know what the numbers is. I forget what it is now. But anyway, your email is going to get delivered. Zoho is another option. Office 365 if you're into the Microsoft, and then Fastmail. Fastmail is a service that someone told me about that I have not tried yet. They do have a 30-day free trial, which makes it enticing to give it a shot, see how it works. But it's something you need. Now, let's just jump back to hosting here for a quick second. Services like SiteGround, Bluehost, and InMotion Hosting do offer email with their packages. And I believe it's unlimited emails. You can create as many emails as you want. I don't really know enough to say good, bad. I couldn't even tell you the positives of that. I don't think it has the same level of, what's the word I'm looking for? Deliverability. I don't know. But it's fine. Again, like for the first year, you're getting your feet wet, you're getting started, just go for it, learn a little bit about email. And then when you're ready to move up, come on over here and explore some of these options. SEO. SEO stands for search engine optimization. Now, every website should have at least a very basic level of SEO, and SEO covers a lot of territory. What I mean by the basics, or the very basic level of SEO, so there's a couple of factors that go into whether or not Google, and let's face it, it's Google, not Yahoo, not Bing. I mean, yeah, they're in there, but 90% of the search traffic, or 90% of, you don't go around saying, oh, I'm going to Bing that. No, you walk around saying, I'm going to Google it, and we'll find the answer. So Google is your main focus. So what Google is looking for is your site well built, is the code well, so like I was mentioning before about sending out bots. So they'll come and they'll scan your website, they'll index your website. So basically they're just kind of like, yeah, indexing it. I guess that pretty much covers it. So they're making a record that here's a website that exists. They look at the content. And again, this goes back to, where I was talking a little bit about Wix relying heavily on JavaScript. And so Google needs to be able to get into your website and scan all the content on your website. So they're going to read, and when you put together a website, the code behind the scenes, everything is, the content that we see and read is put there in a hierarchy. So you have your headlines, then you have subheadlines and things like that. And, there's a lot of mystery behind, what Google weighs and how they make their decisions. But the generally accepted view is that, they look at the hierarchy. So your headline, it's called an H1 tag. So that's the biggest most important. That's telling you what the page is about. And then it goes down from there down to like H6, I think, is the lowest hierarchy. And then after that, you have just copy, your paragraphs. And so this is where you're going to start putting in your keywords, and it has to be relevant. And it's also going to check it against whether or not it's duplicate copy. So a lot of people, they think they can get away with just going to another website, copying that copy, stealing that copy, putting it on their website. And believe me, this does happen. They'll just go to another website, copy everything, put it on their website, and change the color and claim it as theirs. Google will know that. And there's tools out there that, lots of times, you can innocently type in copy that is like 90% or 70% exactly the same as other copy out there. I mean, it's bound to happen. There's billions of websites out there, but you can check that out, and you can check to make sure that your copy is at least 70% unique or 80% unique, whatever the threshold is. You need to know that. So what else? It's going to look, is the website loading fast? Speed is important, because if you have a website that has relevant, important information to the person who's typing in the search, but your website is slow, Google is going to give a better ranking to another website that has more or less the same copy as you do, answering the same questions you do, giving the user the same information as you do. But if their website is faster, that website's going to rank better than your website. It's just, and even if it doesn't rank better, if somebody comes to your website and it loads slow, they're going to leave. And they're going to go back to the search engine results. And let's say you're at number 1 position, but your website is slow. Number 2 position is going to get that traffic, because the person who goes to your website in the first position isn't going to wait around for it to load. So that's part of SEO, and that's super important. Now, SEO, I mean, I could probably sit here and talk for 3 or 4 days about SEO and not cover the entire thing. I mean, it is huge, but the main thing, the first thing you got to get right is you got to build your website well. It's got to be well constructed, well coded, optimized, so that images, we take, every time I've done an audit on a website in the past, the number 1 issue that comes up time and time and time again is that the images are not optimized. In other words, they'll take their phone, they'll take whatever camera they're using, or maybe they'll buy an image off online or whatever it is, and they'll just dump it on their website. And if you do that enough, now, 1 picture, not so bad. But if you have 100 pictures on your website and none of them are optimized, that is going to have a huge impact on the performance of your website, huge impact on your SEO. And even if people do find you, they're not going to stick around and wait for that website to load. So that's also another huge factor in there. So that's the first thing you got to get right. You got to build your website well. And then after that, then, we talk about writing content, talk about consistently writing content, because if you build a really nice website and you got a great start, great homepage, about page, services page, sales page, and then you just leave it there, yeah, Google might recognize you in the beginning, but if they see that the website's not doing anything after that, they're like, well, okay, that's good information, but here's another website that's giving similar information, but they keep giving more information. They keep creating more content. There's a lot of activity on this website. This website actually so that's telling Google that this website is more relevant than your website. They're going to rank higher than you. But again, that's going on down the line. And there are some services out there that can help you to optimize your website. The one I use is SEO Press. It's for WordPress. This isn't going to work on a service like Wix or Squarespace or Shopify. So for WordPress users, install this plugin. There's a free version and there's a premium version. And the free version is plenty enough for most applications, most websites. Basically, it's a checklist. You install this plugin, you write your content, you activate the plugin, and then you just use I'm not going to go into how to use the plugin here right now. It's just, it would take too long. But it gives you the information. The way I use it most of the time is that if I write a blog, I got the SEO Press plugin plugged in, turned on. I look down at the bottom, it's below the content, and there's a couple of tabs there. So the first tab is checking out for keywords, things like that. And you can and there's a little, a little button on the side that's either red, yellow, or green. You want to try to get as many of those green as you possibly can. So it's dead simple to use. After that, website backup. If you're using a free service like Wix or Squarespace or Shopify, no worries. They take care of that stuff for you. But if you're using something like WordPress, WordPress.org, the software, you're going to have to back up your software. You're going to have to back up your website. And most hosting services, probably at this point, all of them offer some level of backup. And you could rely on that if you want to, and you'd probably be okay. The service that I use, Cloudways, does back up the website for me, but just to be safe, I back it up myself too. I use a service called Updraft Plus. They have a free and paid version. Paid, and it does enough for me with the free version. I don't use the paid version. I can back up my website directly to my Google Drive, but you have options to back it up to your hard drive, which I wouldn't recommend. You can back it up to what's the other one called? Dropbox. I think all the different cloud services out there, I think you can connect to that. And you can set up a schedule. So the way I have it set up is that I have 6-day cycles. So I back up today, and then for 6 days, create a new backup. And then on the 7th day, the first one disappears. And then, so I always have 6 days of backup. So this just goes on down the line. And there's a couple of other services out there, but this one is just so simple. Plug it in, configure it, and it walks you through the configuration. And what's really nice about WordPress, and what I really appreciate about the community of WordPress, is just how helpful everybody in the community is. So if you're going to use WordPress and you need help, there's a bunch of Facebook groups out there that are, everybody's just so willing to help. If not there, you can go to YouTube. If you don't have a Facebook page, you can go to YouTube and just type in whatever issue it is. So if you're using Updraft Plus and you're not able to get it configured the right way, just go to YouTube and type in how to use Updraft Plus, Updraft Plus tutorial, whatever it is. That's the one thing. If you're going to do this yourself, you got to get good at Googling solutions. They're always out there. I have never, to this day, I've been building websites for over 3 years. I have never had a question that I could not get answered. Some take longer than others, but I have never had a question I could not get answered, either through the Facebook groups, going to YouTube. Everybody's just is real cool. They just love to jump in and help. Privacy policy is not something that's next on our list. It's not something to take lightly. I've never had a problem with it, but I do have a privacy policy on my website. Depending on where you are, your laws are going to be different. But if you are collecting any information from a user, if you have a contact form, you're asking somebody for their email address, you have to. It's not even you should. You have to have a privacy policy. The service I use is called Termageddon, and I don't really do affiliate stuff at all. I just haven't gotten there yet. But I do have a link here that it's $10 a month. But with this link, since since I'm associated with them, they've given me the ability to offer 10% discount on the first year of your service. So, we're talking, less than $100, and this protects you. And what's cool about it is that it's dynamic. So they even have terms and conditions in there. It's really cool. Definitely check them out. But it's dynamic. So what it is, you take the code that you answer a couple of questions on their website. They generate a privacy policy for you. You take the code from their website, paste it into your website, and it's real dead simple to do. It's dynamic. So as these are lawyers. These are not web designers. These are lawyers. So as the laws change, they update the policy, and dynamically, without you ever having to think about it, it will update. I can show you real quick how that works here. Let's see. And it even gives you a date of the last time that it was updated. So if we go down here to my footer, here's my privacy policy. And it was last updated on September 15th, 2020 at, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And it just covers everything. And works in the United States. It works in a bunch of countries. I don't have the list of which countries they're working with, but I believe they got Canada, and I believe at this point they're in the UK as well. I also have a terms and condition policy set up with them. This one was also updated on September 15th at 4 o'clock. And there you go. It is really critical to have that. It's one of those things, better to have and not need than need and not have. And then we got down here. So if you do get this checklist or this document I created, I also created here a checklist. And this is a checklist I use for just about every website that I launch. And it just is one of those things. There's so much that goes into this that you really need to have. You really need to have a checklist because there's just too much to remember. You don't want to remember it. Save the space in your brain for something else. And this just works. And let's see, do I have this set up? Yes, I have this set up color coded. So as I go down the line, I put a N if it's not done. I put an X if it is done. And so I want to get this all green from the top to bottom. Okay, so again, the less you got to think, the better. So here we go. This just describes, this is a pretty in-depth checklist on all of the different things you need going into building a website. Here we go. Ensure terms of use or terms and conditions pages in place. Verify cookie policy. So again, talks about all of those things, so you don't have to worry about them. Talks about SEO plugin. Is there a plugin in there? Let's see what else we're doing here. Google Analytics and tracking. I didn't go into Google Analytics at all here, but if maybe I'll do that on another video. Verify that Google Tag Manager is installed on the website. Google Tag Manager and Google Analytics, more or less the same thing. Tag Manager is just a more advanced, more in-depth. It covers all of the tracking services offered by Google. I just use the Google Analytics because that's really all I'm concerned about is how much traffic is coming to my website, where is it coming from, who's visiting, and at what time. Talking about verify that the primary domain is selected. Remember we talked a little bit before about www, not www. Again, one of those things that, as you're building your website, by the time you're done, you may not remember this. So you got to make sure that is configured properly, and so on. Now that you got your website, you got to talk about keeping it up to date, maintaining it. And so here's just another little checklist about what needs to get done and when it needs to get done. The things you need to do daily, the things you need to do weekly, the things you need to do monthly, and the things you need to do annually. And that just kind of goes into all of that stuff right there. And that is, what is a landing page? I started going into that, and this page always loads funky. I'm sure everybody, I don't know why that happens, but these images are supposed to be down here like this. And that one doesn't want to move. I don't know. If I just refresh the page, that usually gets sorted out. Did it? There it is. Oh, this one did not get sorted out. Or is this? Anyway, I don't want to waste your time with this, but okay. So anyway, landing pages, I'm not going to go into that now. Let's just end it here. So anyway, that's what it takes to get a good professional website. And I cover everything in here. I will offer a link in the descriptions if you want to download this for yourself. Keep it in your Google Drive. I believe you could even download this as an Excel spreadsheet. I've never done that. Yeah, let's see. Download. Yep, you can download it as Microsoft Excel. You can download it as a PDF, whatever format works best for you, or you could just leave it in your Google Drive. So when you get it, all you got to do is come in here, say make a copy, rename it, or don't, leave it however you want to call it, and then move it to wherever it is you want to keep it in your Google Drive. And then you can just refer to this. I put links to all the different services I talked about. So that should cover everything that you need. And as always, if you have any questions, you can always contact me, and I would be happy, more than happy, as they say, to try to help you out with this. Websites can be confusing, can be overwhelming because there is so much stuff out there. But depending on how you approach it and you simplify it, you could be up and running in no time at all. All right. thank you very much. I kept you here for a long time. I appreciate it if you're still here. And all right, take care.